I'll introduce myself. I'm Bill Raymond, the current president of OpSIG for another week until the new board, which has its meeting a week from today, elects a new president. And we have board members, Rob Hinkle, Eric Smith, Bruce Morden. I saw Chuck's name earlier, but I don't see it right now at the moment.
Chuck White is on.
Chuck, yeah, okay. And Chuck White. So they're all the board is in attendance. I appreciate not only obviously all the board attending this meeting, but also all of the members who have signed in. Eric, a question for you real quick. I know that when you do the second section meetings, you are able to tabulate how many people wind up attending. Is that something you can do here?
Yeah, all you have to do is look at the participants, click the participants button.
I see it. Yeah.
Right now we're at 56.
Well,
so.
that's actually, all things being said, that's better than we usually do. Usually we are 25. I think the most we had, Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, was about 50 or 55. So at the Nationals.
Yep. I'm also recording this so that we can put it up for other members to watch if they had a conflict.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. Having also just to go over this, I know you all probably read the masthead and the DO, but you know we have other people who obviously do a lot of contribute a lot of their time to the organization, and so I just want to mention some of them. Jim Malamian, who is our outgoing treasurer, and John Zach, who is the assistant outgoing treasurer. We have our new treasurer and assistant treasurer, Joe Rodenberg, and Owen Maddox. I saw Owen was online. I'm not sure about Joe right at the moment. We have our election chairman, Peter Kerr. Of course, we have our webmaster, which is Eric in one of his many roles. Who am I missing, guys? The point being here is that it's not just the board that makes this a great organization and keeps it viable and successful. It's the work of all the people, regardless of whether they're on the board or not. So I just want to thank all of them. They've been a great support for me over the last 3 years as president, and in the 6 years I've been on the board, it's been a pleasure working with all of them. So thank you guys. Rob, quick question. Does everybody have the agenda, or has it just been to the board members?
Just to the board members at this point. But
okay. I am following a agenda, just so you all know. It's pretty standard if you've ever been to a general meeting before. Before we go into each topic, I'll at least tell you what the topic is. What I obviously just did was the introduction of the board and other staff. The next item on the agenda is the president's report, which again is me. You know, of course, like I said, as I've said in my turnover report, you know, my 3-year term as president is up this month. And since I have served 2 consecutive terms on the board, and 3 of them, 3 years as a board member, 3 years as the president, I cannot run again, and so therefore I will not be on the board after next week. Not that I haven't enjoyed every minute of it, but I'm also looking forward to not being on the board after next week. So somebody else can have the opportunity to contribute and you know, help this organization grow. It's obviously, you know, having to have a meeting like this obviously tells you a lot about how this year has been. It's, to say the least, you know, this is something I don't think any of us ever would have imagined in January of this year, or even as late as February, March, or April, that you know, we'd have cancellation of the national convention, cancellation of so many, obviously, regional meetings, regional conventions, the eventual cancellation of the 2022 convention in Birmingham because of all the cancellation of the other things that occurred now. It basically shoved them out of all their venues. Obviously, the unfortunate number of deaths that have occurred due to the COVID-19 virus and the number of people infected. So it's been different, to say the least. I guess the silver lining in the cloud, at least from my standpoint, and I think for a lot of others, is that we've all been able to, or we've all had the opportunity probably to put a lot of time in the basement or wherever your railroad happens to be, to do a lot of those things that we never get a chance to do, or never seem to get a chance to do. I know myself, I've spent a lot of time building structures and doing other projects that I just, haven't got to. So from that standpoint, it's been great. The downside is I haven't been to an ops session in 6 months. So, that's tough on an operator, but it is what it is. And hopefully, especially when there's a vaccine, we can all get at least back closer to normal, whatever that is now, than we are right now. So pretty much, I guess that's my remarks or my report. I mean, a lot of what, as far as the organization goes, it's going to come out in subsequent reports. So that I'm not going to go through and talk about those things right now. So, and of course, if there are, as Eric mentions, if there are questions or comments that need to be made as these reports are given, by all means, do it through the chat box or raise your hand or something, and we'll try to make sure you get recognized. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the membership report. Is Jeff Youst online? Okay. Jeff is our membership chairman. He is, obviously he maintains, he was manually maintaining the database of all our members and et cetera. Subsequent report, we'll talk about how we've finally moved in out of the 1990s into the 2020s with some better ways to do that online, et cetera. So I neglected to contact Jeff earlier just in case he wasn't online to find out what our membership numbers were. So I don't know how they compare to last year.
Bill?
Yes.
If you give me a second, I can pull that.
Okay, great. That'd be terrific.
Okay, as of right now, actually, give me 5 minutes. Let me get this into a little bit more usable format. But yeah, just go ahead and I'll circle back with that information.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. So we'll get back to that topic in a minute. Unless there's any questions that we need to address at the moment, but okay, treasurer's report. Rob, did you get anything from Jim? Unmute. You're still muted, Rob.
Yeah, the host needed to unmute me. I've not gotten a recent thing.
Yeah.
I know that the last number we got was still pretty positive.
Right.
Obviously, we're going to take a bit of a hit not having the national convention because we usually get a lot of renewals at the convention itself. So don't forget to renew. A lot of people do start their term usually in July. So you want to make sure you do renew. So before the next issue of the DO comes out, you're still a member if you're still if you haven't been, but we've
Hey.
improved that,
Yeah.
which Eric will talk to.
Yeah,
Okay.
Bill, right now,
Yep.
we have 692 electronic subscriptions, and we have 704 minus 9, so 695 print subscriptions.
So we're
about 1,400.
Yeah, almost 1,400, and that's about where we were last year. So that's at least something. I don't have the exact numbers, but we're maintaining, and that's a good thing. What I will do for the benefit of the membership is, because just in case there wasn't a treasurer's report, we did get one at year end. I'm going to pull that up on my screen and just give you the highlights, and at least that way you can we can give a little comparison. As of December 31st of 2018, we had total assets of roughly $214,400. As of December 31st of 2019, we had assets of $226,450. So obviously our assets have gone up. Our liabilities have also gone up slightly. Went from 101,800, and these are round numbers, to 103,800, so a couple $100,000 increase. But still, we ended up the year plus $14,000 better off than we were the previous year, which is a good thing. Now, our revenues and expenses, they didn't track quite as high this year, or 19, I should say, as they did in 18. But overall, it was comparable between revenue and expenses. We had an income, a profit of 13.4 roughly in 2018, and in 19 we had a little over 10,000. So all things being said, the organization is in good financial shape. It continues to have good revenues. Like Rob just stated a few minutes ago, yeah, we're going to suffer a bit this year because of no national convention. Usually our biggest seller at the national convention is the books. We'll sell usually 100 books, or so, and at $40 to $50 a book, that's a sizable amount of income. But book sales are going okay. We are still selling books, and so all the signs are good from a financial standpoint. The organization is in great financial shape. So that's the good news. Any questions or comments anybody wants to make? Okay, thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is the election results from this year's election. Is Peter Carr online? Okay.
No, it doesn't look like he is.
Yeah, that's okay. I've got the information. I did remember to get that. Okay, so again, to kind of review what I said a little while ago, since I could not run again, obviously there was a new board position open, for a new person, and then there was a second board position that came open, but it was for, in effect, Rob's position on the board, and he ran for re-election to that position. So the two people who ran were Mark Nolan and Rob Hinkle for the two board positions. Obviously, since they ran unopposed, they were both elected. Congratulations to Mark. Congratulations again to Rob. And they were, you know, as of next week, they'll start officially their new 3-year term as board members. And let's see, the report I got, and this is a little, to me, what's the word I'm looking for? Not disturbing, but I guess maybe disturbing is a good word. And it might have been for a variety of reasons related to the COVID-19, but as far as the elections went this year, only 61 people bothered to vote. Okay, that's pretty low compared to the quote unquote 1,400 members that we have, and it's also not. You would think that more people would be more interested in choosing the candidates that are going to be running their organization than 61. But the fact remains that's what it was. So obviously, those people were elected or reelected, as the case may be, and they'll start serving their terms. So is there 2 positions opened in next year or just 1? Does anybody know offhand?
Hold on, let me pull it up.
We lost your audio, Eric.
Yeah, it's not working. Bruce's term expires next year. Everybody else is either,
okay.
Well, now I'll have to update this, but either
right
2023 or 2022.
Right, gotcha. Okay. All right. All right.
Bill,
so yes.
Do you want to talk about Chuck?
I was just getting ready. That was what I was pausing on. Yeah. As we've Chuck White contacted me, who's a board member, who was actually, I think this is the end of his first year, contacted me last month. And unfortunately, due to some health issues that he has told me that he can't, serve on the board like he'd want to adequately serve, and so therefore he would need to resign. We, of course, what I told him was that we all understood that. Obviously, his health is the #1 priority, not the OpSIG board, so that he needs to take care of himself. And so obviously that was the right thing to do. But, and I obviously thanked him for his service and his willingness to serve. But that obviously creates a vacuum or a hole within the board that has to be filled. We have, in our bylaws, we have the provision, if something like that happens, to replace that individual based on the board approving a candidate. He doesn't have to be voted in until his term expires, or the term that he's completing expires. And then if he wanted to run for the board again, he would have to run for re-election. The person that, fortunately, I guess, if you want to say it that way, back about the time that the election was going on, I was contacted by an individual by the name of Roger Sequeira, who was very interested in serving the OpSIG in some way, shape, or form. And so when Chuck's unfortunate circumstances came up and forced him to resign, and Bruce, if I misspeak here, please let me know. But Bruce Morton, one of our other board members, contacted Roger since he knew him asked him if he would be interested in filling out the term, and he said he would. And so therefore, we as a board have elected or appointed Roger to fulfill Chuck's term starting right after next week's board meeting. I'm sorry. Okay. Again, thank you, Chuck, for one, showing your willingness to serve, two, and serving, and three, best of our best wishes to you in your health issues to recover fully from those. And Roger, if you're online, welcome to the board. Welcome to the OpSIG board. And if not, thank you for volunteering to be a part of it. Anybody have any comments to that?
Hey, Bill, there is a Mark Nolan is on the line, and he asked a question about whether the bylaws allow for electronic voting.
That you know what, that had come up before, and I'm trying to remember now what the deal was with that. Was that something we tabled to look at later? Anybody? Rob, do you remember? I can check something real quick here.
Rob, you can unmute yourself if you need to.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think that we ever came to consensus as a board. As Billy had not mentioned, but as well as serving on the board, I'm also the OpSIG secretary, so I keep a note of all the meetings and have done that since 2012. So I will have to go back and look and see. I don't know if it's specified in the bylaws on voting.
I was going to say the only thing it mentioned in the bylaws, which I'll drop a link to here, it's just each member shall have one vote, and I mean, there's really nothing that precludes it from happening. So I think it was just we did electronic voting for the local division. It would be very easy to set up for next time around. So
yeah, I think that was when I was just looking at my email traffic on it, and we last talked about it in early February. Of course, you all know what happened shortly after that, and so we never really got any further. But up to that point, our research said there didn't appear to be anything in the bylaws that prohibited it from happening, and the only really open issue was if there's people who do not have access to the internet, computer, whatever, so they could vote electronically, we would, we felt like we at least still need to have the ability for them to do it with a paper ballot. But again, that shouldn't be any big problem, because when it was published in the DO as a quote unquote paper valid ballot, we could give them the ability to go to this link and vote, or send in the paper ballot. So,
yeah, I think at that point it was when the old Rona hit, we were getting ready for elections. Everything was already at White River for the April issue, so it was too late to make that change.
Right.
But I think we can, for the next time around, we can definitely modify the ballot to say you can submit your vote electronically at this URL and set that up. I think we just need to make a decision on that, either at the board meeting or whatever.
Right. Well, like I say, the NMRA is doing it now, both at the national level and the regional levels for sure. I'm not, I know you said some divisions are doing it.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a way to control it, which is we should be able to, I would think, or the new board should be able to address any of those issues and come up with a solution to them. So
got a couple questions. Cal Sexsmith, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, just to the issue of the electronic voting. I'm on the Layout Design SIG Board of Directors, and we really wanted to go that route, but we are incorporated in the state of Connecticut, and the state of Connecticut does not allow nonprofits to conduct electronic ballots. So that's another issue you may have to check. I don't know where OpSIG is incorporated.
State of Connecticut.
Hmm?
The OpSIG is the state of Connecticut as well.
So you might want to check that.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks, Cal.
Bruce Morden, you can go ahead and ask your question.
I was just going to mention that Eric has been busy working on making it electronically possible to renew memberships and stuff online. I think Eric will probably talk about that when he gets to the webmaster report, but that's going to make it easier if we can get past the Connecticut prohibition that Cal just brought up.
Yeah, I didn't even know about the Connecticut thing. We'll have to look into that and see if that does apply, but any other questions? I don't see any. Go ahead, Bill.
Okay. Just trying to find where I'm at here. Okay, here we are. Okay, so Eric, you're up. The next item on the agenda is the editor's report for the DO. So I will turn it over to you and go on mute.
Okay. Well, as of the July issue, we've switched to a different publisher. Our previous publisher, White River, let's just say it would have been prohibitively expensive to continue with them. So we switched to a new publisher as of that issue. He's a guy here in Indianapolis he does lots and lots of marketing. He actually cut his teeth doing magazines, and happy to say that he did a great job with the July issue. In fact, it was actually ready about a month early, which I don't think has ever happened. The new design, we've gotten lots of compliments on it. Again, he did a great job on it. Sort of freshened up the design, and I haven't heard any complaints about it, so that's a good thing. Currently, we've also submitted content for the October issue already. He is working on the layout for that. As part of the website redesign, we actually have we've updated the submission guidelines. And there is actually a fixed schedule up there if you go down to the bottom of the page. So if you're somebody who's interested in publishing an article, that will give you a good timeline. Pretty much whatever the issue is, we need the content in hand 3 months prior. And you can see how it seems like a long time, but if you take a look at the day breakdown, you can see why that is the case. A few other things. We continue to take advertising. We actually now have Rapido Trains out of Canada is actually I'll call them a premier advertiser. They have the back cover of the issue for basically for the next year. And that's a great support. It helps defray the costs of the membership, or defray the cost of publishing. Getting articles, we actually have, right now we've got kind of a wealth of riches in terms of articles. I said that we've got the October content already over, and I believe, I'll have to look at the page count, but we may already have enough for the January issue. So as I said, we will basically publish if it's operations related, we'll publish it. This is not a timetable and train order only magazine. We want to talk about all different types of operations, whether it's small layouts, big layouts, whatever era, prototype articles. We've got a number of good articles coming up that were, trying to remember where these came from. A historical society from the, I'll have to find the author's name. His name's Tom Hawley. He's actually written for one of the historical societies, talking about the day of an engineer. He's got 3 different articles that'll be coming up in future issues. So we try to mix things up, try to profile layouts. The other thing we've gotten away from is the photo essays. Those we're using on the Facebook page, which I'll talk about in a minute. So if it's just photos and so on, that's generally where they go. A few other things, and again, these are really not appointed positions, but in terms of people helping out, I want to give a special thanks to all the people who are helping to proofread now. Besides Jim Alamian, who is sort of the final proofreader, we also have a group of, I believe it's 5 or 6 other people who are proofing articles, sort of a first pass to help make sure that we're not letting errors into the material. So I want to thank them for doing it. The other thing I'm looking at, and whether this is a board member or somebody else who wants to help, 2 other things I'd like to find would be a advertising manager. The advertising manager would both help manage the ads that are being sold, as well as dealing with hobby shops. In case you're not aware, OpSIG is the magazine is shipped to a number of hobby shops around the country. Right now, I think it's 8 or 9. We would have more, but some of the stores are simply closed. So we'd like to get that number up. So if that's something you're interested in, please let me know. And then obviously managing the actual ads that are in the issue, that had been done by Jim. Now that he's retired as treasurer, I'd like to have somebody helping to take care of that. It's just, it's not a huge job. It's a job that needs to be done, and it's a way to contribute to the organization. So with that said, I'll take any questions about the DO specifically. If you have a question, just type it into the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask.
Hey, Eric.
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah. Is the DO, or is there any kind of index that is an online electronic searchable index that we could go back and do some research with that?
What I do have, if you go out to the website, let me share my screen real quick. If you're on the DO website, if you go to the dispatcher's office, issue index, what I do have out there right now is by year out to 2008. We do have all of the covers and the tables of contents up, if you can see that.
Yeah, I can see that. I guess the question is, some of us may not have been active members for quite a while, like while we were working. And as
Right.
such, if we find something and we can see the covers, then we would just have to contact you about getting an electronic copy or something, or buying it from you.
Correct. Like I said, that's something that's coming. There's some board decisions that need to be made over that. Some of the issues, Jim A has PDFs all the way back to like the first issue, and he's working on getting those to me. Ideally, we'll be able to load those in and make them searchable. That's sort of a next step down the road for the index, so that if you're looking for a particular article, we can say, okay, this is where you can find it. So it's coming. at least right now, you can see the covers back to 2008, which is as far back as I had electronic copies. So,
Okay, thank you very much, Eric.
all right, let me stop sharing here. Any other questions about the DO? Okay, we'll call that section done. I guess I'll just keep yammering here.
Yeah,
I'll just keep going.
Just before you start, just so everybody knows, the next item on the agenda is the webmaster's report. Again, that's Eric.
Yeah. Before we say that, I wanted to put out a special thanks to Mark Johnson. I don't know if he's on today. He was the longtime webmaster for the OpSIG. He chose to retire after doing the job for probably as long as the group had a website, I would imagine, right, Bill? Pretty much. So we want to thank him for all of his efforts in that regard. As you can see, if you haven't been out to the website, it has been refreshed. Just go out to opsig.org. This is on a commercial provider that is, if you care about the technology, it is multiply redundant. It uses a SQL Server database behind it, and it's been rewritten using modern web technology. Some of the features are still being rewritten. The member index is one of them. The call board, sort of restructuring it a little bit from the way it was before. A lot of the data, especially on the event calendar, got painfully out of date simply because we lost track of who was in charge of the events. So I'm working on a new way that members will be able to submit events, and they can essentially submit them, and our calendar coordinator, Ron Kofer, can approve them to make sure we're not getting junk in there. He'll also be able to add stuff. So the homepage of the OpSIG page, there's a what's new section that will be updated periodically with here are the new features. But as Bruce mentioned earlier, the highest priority thing is being able to do online registrations and renewals, so that instead of, again, trying to reduce the load on our we get a lot of complaints that why is it taking so long to get this subscription set up, blah, blah, blah. One, you need to give the people some grace because this is a volunteer job. Everybody has their own, at least I know Jeff is still working. I'm still working. This is a volunteer organization. So we will get you your issue, when the time is right. However, there are a number of things we can do to automate it so that if you want to buy for instance, buying a digital back issue eventually will be something that we will support, and you'll be able to just say, oh, that's the issue I want, click, buy, done, and it's accessed. So, but without the new website, we had no way to do that. So, so all of those things are coming. Obviously, I'll take some suggestions for new features as well. Just send them to the webmaster address. And with that, I'll end the webmaster section if people have questions. Tom, your question about making corrections in the call board, if you may know of obvious mistakes, you can send those to me for right now. But like I said, the call board, we're going to restructure that into essentially a railroad index. The idea that some people may have their personal layout, they may have a club. So the idea of saying, I'm going to submit an entry for my club and I'm going to submit an entry for my personal railroad. So I'll have two call board entries and they will be linked to me. That way we can keep track of how the records are owned. So
the reason why I'm asking that is there's some obvious things. Specifically, I'm thinking of what we call Comanche down here, which is the Comanche and Indian Gap Railroad that is a live steam railroad up in Comanche, Texas. And there's other ones that are in our area that the individual coordinators are no longer the coordinators. They
Yeah.
still go on and the dates change, and
Yep.
and that kind of stuff is helpful because we like to get people to those.
Yep.
So,
And that's the sort of thing on the event calendar. That was the event calendar that's up right now was copied directly from the old site.
right.
That's the thing that's going to be reworked so that we know exactly where every event came from, and especially like the repeating ones or the every 2-year ones, that sort of thing. The other thing that we're going to go through, and I don't know if this needs to be a board decision, but on a previous DO issue, I made a comment about I think it was a ProRail event, which turns out was an invitational, even though the ProRail site does not mention that. I got a ton of grief about even mentioning ProRail because it is a invitational, you have to know somebody. And I think some of the events on the call board are that. You can't just sign up for them. And I don't know if it needs to be a policy decision or what, but at least in the DO, we don't talk about events that are not invitational or that are not open for somebody to attend. I understand why the groups do that, but if we have pictures or whatever, the only place those go to is to Facebook. So the Prairie Rail event that was this past spring, and I think we need to promote the idea of having open events and not so much, if you want to have a private event, that's fine, but OpSIG isn't going to push it. So,
That's an interesting thing because we have had a series of round robins down here in Texas and with Tulsa. And we found over the last 5 to 10 years, we have a tremendous drop off in it. Okay. And so consequently, we're looking at opening things up. They were basically select, what we could do to get more participation. Part of it's the problem is I think our population, this is getting out of the subject, I apologize for that, but part of the issue is, and we probably maybe want to talk about this somewhere else, Eric, but it is a continuing situation that invitation only versus non-invitation only and getting people and layouts that are available. So you tell me, I'll shut up.
No, it's, in fact, that's exactly why I built my operatingsessions.com site, which is not officially an OpSIG product, but I know a lot of people are using it. And just as an example, looking down the calendar, I see MinRail listed. MinRail is absolutely not an invitational, or it's not an open invite. You have to know a coordinator who can get you an invite. That's the sort of thing that we can't really discourage it. We can't tell people they can't do it, but at the same time, I see both sides of it, and the board will have to make I'd like it to be an official policy decision before we say anything further. So,
Eric, I have a question on that.
Go ahead.
If you could list the contact person on that list, would that help? People could contact them directly, explain where they met or what their experience is, etc.
It's more the fact that it is like this, the one that I'm talking about is open invite, however, contact first for MinRail, which is not actually their policy. Their policy is they have a regional coordinator that you have to get an invitation from. So it's just something we need to clean up. I don't want to turn this into a big discussion about that, but Rob, did you have a question?
I just wanted to make a comment that one of the things that the board has decided to do with the new website and the DO is if you are a print subscriber, you will be able to see the electronic version as well on the website.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
From here going forward.
Good reminder. Yeah, so it's exactly what he said. Basically, as of the April issue, if you have
with the new website, right?
Right. So print subscribers will obviously they're paying the extra to get the print, but and it was actually as of the April issue, you can also go online and see the electronic version for whatever print subscriptions you had starting in April. Now, the only reason we can't go further back is because we simply don't have reliable subscription data to know that, oh, you had the January 2011 print issue, we'll give you the same electronic access. But it's still something going forward. So thanks for the reminder, Rob. So can't find information regarding national conventions. Reinhard, what do you mean the previous national conventions on the old website? You can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask. Yeah. Somebody's asking, couldn't find information regarding national.
There he is, Eric.
Oh, go ahead.
Yes, I think on the previous site there was with meetings, and then you had the nationals, and then there were from some previous nationals some pages. I remember that from 2010 with this funny picture and also the other things. So there was with the events one, let's say, subtopic just about national conventions.
I have the old website. I'll dig through there and see if there was something there.
I know that we used to put links to the most recent one up there, and I mean, a lot of them we just link directly to the website of the convention.
Yeah.
Right.
The issue there is if the convention website goes down after a couple of years, then the link just basically dead. So we didn't store a lot of information on there, but we can try and capture some of the stuff that exists.
Yeah. And the thing is, we've also got, at least on the OpSIG Facebook page, we do have photos out there. We've been putting them out there because we didn't have a good way to put them quickly up on the website in like large numbers. We may be able to do that. It's just something I'll need to import from the software management that I use. But like we've got NMRA 2019 photos from Lee Nicholas's layout and Rob Spangler's layout out on the Facebook page. So that's maybe something we could pull over into the OpSIG website.
So just a question, the Facebook page is open for anybody, or do I have to be registered with Facebook?
I mean, you have to be, yeah, generally to get to, well, here, I'll just put the link in here. You can try to click on it. I'm pretty sure it will. Normally Facebook stuff, you have to be registered on Facebook, which is why we don't use Facebook exclusively. But it's an easy way, just as long as we're talking about web stuff. The Facebook page for OpSIG currently has 1,735 followers. So everything we put up there, at least 1,700 people are seeing it. We were talking about the layout photos before. Every time we put those up, those get shared out to multiple locations. And we've actually seen people joining OpSIG because of the content that we're putting up. Same thing with the virtual meetups, which we'll talk about next. Those have actually been a surprisingly popular thing, and it's actually been getting people to join the organization. So,
no, I have no Facebook account, but it works. Thanks for the link.
Like I said, as part of the new website, we'll be able to put the photos that would have just ended up on Facebook before. We'll be able to put those up on the OpSIG webpage too. So, and yes, what Colin is saying, Facebook will nag you to log in. They'll give you a little bit for free, but it's okay. All right. Any more questions about website? All right.
Okay. All right. You're still on, Eric. Next topic is the virtual meetings.
Yeah, For those of you who aren't aware of it, back in, I guess it was actually on Easter. So back in, what was that, April 12th, I had an idea to basically put up, just sort of and I don't know if we were the first ones. I think I was doing a Bible study with church, and it just came to me as like, well, why don't we do something for OpSIG? And I just spun one up, put it up on Facebook, and said, hey, if you want to get together, why don't you, jump on this Zoom meeting? And I think the first night, with hours of notice, we still had 30 or 40 people who popped in. Since then, we've had, well, let me see, at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 virtual meetups, as well as a couple of, including a couple of Q&A forums. I guess we've had 9. We actually had one where we hit 150 people. The board had agreed to fund normally Zoom is limited to 100 people. And we actually maxed out one time. And so we said, okay, let's give it a try for May. And we bumped it up, and we hit up to 150 people. Now, since then, and we've basically sort of settled on a pretty good format of a couple presenters, each talking about 20, 25 minutes apiece, time for questions. We do the next, and then we open it up at the end for just general discussion. And I'm happy to say that I've actually gotten contacted by at least 3 other organizations wanting to copy off of our papers, so to speak. The way that we run the meetings, the people who are presenting, how do they do it? And people wanted to do live video tours. Well, we found very quickly that was awful. People don't have enough bandwidth. And so the presentation format, the recommendations, lots of people are using those. In fact, Burr Stewart, I don't know if he's on today, they just did one up in the Pacific Northwest yesterday, following exactly our template. And he's like, well, you guys inspired it. I'm like, well, that's great. The other thing that's even more interesting, obviously finding as we've started it, everybody else is doing these as well. This is not a unique thing now. However, we are getting a huge uptick in terms of replay value. In fact, I just was going out to the YouTube page. We have got in the neighborhood of, let's say 500, several thousand replays of the videos that we've posted up. The first one we did on 4/26 that got recorded has been seen by 770 people. And that's huge. I mean, that's half our membership right there. So, and like I said, if it turns into more memberships, turns into people who want to do operations, I mean, that's our whole goal, right? That's the organization's goal, is to get people into operations. So at this point, we're continuing to do them. We're only doing them every 2 weeks. We're mixing them in with open Q&A forums. Those generally I think we had 60 people this past week. We talked about virtual operating sessions. We talked about jobs at an operating session. So it's just been like I said, it's a good mix of stuff. We've had, my goal is to find good presenters and get out of the way. And like I said, we've had a really good mix from all over the country presenting. So, and right now we are capped at 100, which has been fine. We have not gone anywhere close to that. Like I said, at this point, we've got, and Colin, we've basically settled on Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern for our meetings. That gets out of the way of everybody else, which there's an awful lot of them now. A lot of Saturdays. And obviously this whole week, we've got the Gateway X thing, which is pretty extensive. But everything is up on opsig.org/virtual. and we send out the schedule prior to that, and then put up the recording within a few hours after it's been done. So otherwise, that's that's about it for me. I'll add one more thing. Yes, I'm doing a lot of things. I don't necessarily want to do everything. The virtual meetup thing was just completely out of the blue. I'm surprised they've done this well, but I think even once the pandemic is over, I think having this as something that OpSIG does I think it's important to keep doing, because really otherwise OpSIG really never gets together except at the national convention.
Mm-hmm.
And I think everybody it's not always the same group getting in it. I mean, we have people from all over the world connecting in, Australia, UK, all across the country, Canada. And everybody seems to like them. So I'd like to do that, continue doing that. Like I said, as I said before, I would like some help with some of the DO things to kind of get some of that off my plate, and so on. So yeah, I'm done talking at this point, unless anybody has any questions for me.
Have you considered indexing the YouTube videos?
Indexing the YouTube videos? You mean in terms of, okay, here are the two people?
Well, you've got another set of content out there. So let's say I wanted to find out about what are the positions in an operating session. How would I find the video of the virtual meeting where you discussed what are the positions in there? Just like you are thinking about an index for the DOs, that's another quote publication.
Yeah, so there some stuff's on the website for the past meetup videos, but that's pretty much for the schedule. If it's a Q&A session, I think somebody would have to go back and review what was discussed in it and just add details. It's
not a bad idea. I'd be happy to accept your help if you wanted to go through the videos and write down what it was, and then I could just paste it into the web page. I'd be happy to do that. I just don't have the time to do it. But I think it's a great idea, and I'd be more than happy to accept your help, Dave. So with that, Bill, I turn it back over to you unless there's any other questions.
Okay. Thank you, Eric, for your reports. And I want to underscore what Eric just said a minute ago. He is wearing a lot of hats, and we're so lucky that he's willing to wear those hats, but he does need help on, a lot of those things. And, obviously there's hundreds of ways things can probably be improved, but he can't do it all himself. So, let's, everybody needs to look deeply and say, hey, if we want to make this organization better and generate more members and expose more people to operations, how can I help do that? Other than just paying my dues, so to speak. So if you have, good ideas and you're willing to invest some time, it doesn't mean you have to be on the board or anything like that. But, a lot of this stuff, it's not that many hours that you're talking about. And generally when it happens, I would say it's more of a bunched, or a lump sum of hours. You maybe once a month you might devote 5 or 6 hours to something, and that's it. I don't know. But anyway, give it some thought, because the suggestions are great, but obviously it takes manpower to put them into effect. Okay. The next, I'm going to combine the next 2 agenda items into one, and that's reports on the national conventions. I asked Michael Thomas, who was our OpSIG coordinator for St. Louis, to be available to give a report. Unfortunately, he's not available to do that, so he has given me a report. And I noticed Dave Parks is online, so he'll give a report after I give Michael's. And even though we didn't have obviously a St. Louis convention this year, Michael Thomas put in a whole bunch of work, on the assumption, obviously, that it was going to happen. And even up until the point of, mid-April, when a lot of other things were being canceled, they did open up. I'm sorry. They did open up registration for the convention, but they hadn't quite gotten to the point where they were doing the registration for the op sessions, and then, of course, they decided to cancel it. But so I at least wanted to let you all know, kind of give you an overview of what we're all missing. So I'm just going to read his report that he sent to me. We were all quite disappointed that we weren't able to welcome everyone to St. Louis to operate on all of the fine layouts we have in our area. We had a total of 28 op sessions scheduled at 17 homes and 3 clubs. These sessions were spread out over all 7 days of the convention, with at least 2 and as many as 7 sessions available on any given day. There were approximately 224 operating slots available on all the layouts. All the layouts were HO except for one, which was N scale. Most of them were transition era, but there were some that were set in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Some layouts, of course, were prototype specific. Some were freelance prototype, and some were just freelance, which is typical. Most layouts were dispatched with a timetable and train orders or with track warrants. A few had CTC signals, and so there was a good cross section of railroads that we could have enjoyed had the convention not have been canceled. He concludes by saying he wants to thank Bob Brady, Gary Gross, Pat Hyatt, and Mexico Train Works, Jay Jansen, Bob Johnson, Brad Joseph, Hank Cratchley, I hope I pronounced that right, Ken Crosswich of K10 Model Trains, Lonnie Badhurst and the Litchfield Train Group, Steve Medler, Joe and Tony Pellegrino, John Peluso, Brian Post, Dave Roeder, John Schindler, Kurt Stroher, John Visitine, Bill Waymeyer, and Fred Wilkie for the willingness to open their homes and layouts to you. So, obviously, as a whole, we're not going to be able to fill. It's an opportunity that we may never be able to have again to operate on some of those fine layouts. But even though Michael couldn't be here, I wanted to express my gratitude for all the hard work he put in to make it a great series of events. Had the convention not been canceled. So thank you, Michael. And I'm going to ask now Dave Parks to give us an update on what he's got planned, or where he's at least at in the planning for the 2021 Santa Clara National Convention.
Well, I'm assuming, can I be heard?
Yes.
Okay. I'm assuming there will be a 2021 Santa Clara Convention. Some of the things that we have here, they're a little different than other places, is we have a really bad traffic problem. So we're considering taking some of the remote layouts and grouping them and having them possibly in an advanced section. As some of you may remember, we had an advanced section with op sessions at the Sacramento Convention in 2011. We had a 3-day advanced section in the Bay Area. In this case, the main convention is in the Bay Area, in the South Bay in Santa Clara. To get from Santa Clara to some of the other locations on a weekday is possible, but it's just not a lot of fun to take a 2-hour drive someplace, do a 2.5-hour op session, and then another 2 hours. Might be, if it's in the evening, it's going to be less time coming back. But we're really gridlocked on weekdays and even some weekends. So anyway, we're giving some consideration to having an advanced section, which would probably be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, with the option of a person staying in a remote hotel if they want to do that and stay up there. They weren't sign up for all 3 days. They could sign up for any one op session. But if they were going to do it as a group, then we'd endeavor to have activity for them. We're a second option, which we're looking at, is integrating the op sessions with layout tours in the same area and running buses. This was done actually in the 2000 convention. We had buses carrying people, a mixture of people being dropped off at an op session. A bus tours other layouts. Some of these buses were mini buses, and so they were 20 passenger buses, dropping people at op sessions and then taking another group associated with the LD-SIG generally to a group of the layouts, and then coming back and picking up the oppers and dropping them off. This was done in 2000. In year 2000 at the San Jose convention. Traffic is much worse now than it was then. In 2011, we used mini buses for doing layout tours for the LD-SIG. We did allow non-LD-SIG people to go on those tours. We didn't restrict that in any way. And essentially, we took an integrated position that the layout is a resource and it should be available to the LD-SIG or the OpSIG or the general layout or general convention attendee. And a lot of the smaller layouts, it's optimum to use a mini bus. These big bus tours don't really work out that well because you've got maybe 10 minutes in a layout and 50 minutes of standing outside waiting for your turn to see the layout. But it all depends on the size of the layout. Now we do have a bunch of larger layouts that are directly in the Bay Area, and that wouldn't be applying to them. It would be in the outlying ones. And 3 areas we're looking at are Sacramento, where we had the convention in 2011, Marin County and north, beyond Marin County, which would be the North Bay. And then the third area would be the Sierra foothills. I don't know what the popularity of these things will be, whether people really want to come extra time. But we probably will not have Bay Rails as a competing event in the spring of next year. And so that usually draws quite a number of people, and which is one of these invitational type meets. But we, instead of offering that, would integrate it with the national convention and offer a little broader level of opping experiences. I don't know what people want to do. We're going in all those directions at once and prepared to offer quite a number of options. The real issues are where you even going to have a convention, but we can't settle that here. That's all.
David, this is Eric Smith. Just a quick question for you. With the assumption that the event is going to go forward, how much of the layout information do you think, let me back up. In the past, we've tried to get that into the DO. The problem is this would need to be in the April issue, which means you'd have to have the content to me by January. Is that At what point would they start registering for operating sessions? Again, assuming everything happens on schedule.
Well, we have another event here which is requiring us to contact almost all the same layouts anyway, and that is we have well, we're not allowed to call it an OpSIG, so we just call it SIG event in January, the fourth week in January, which is a combination of, it's like a mini convention. We have op sessions on Sunday, layout tours on Friday and Saturday, and clinics on Saturday. It's a 3-day event now with a banquet. That will require the contacting of all these same layouts, and we'll be signing them up for the convention at the same time they're contacted. This will take place in September, October of this year. So we will have it pretty well set by by the end of October as to who will be available and what their days of assignment. All that material will be available long before January.
Okay. Well, when we get closer, we'll see about either putting that in the DO or just putting up on the OpSIG website. So it'll be more current, but
yeah,
we'll see what we can do.
We could have signups as early as you want. It's just most people don't sign up. I think the signups for the conventions itself are going to become rather late, and
yeah.
But as far as the availability of material for the layouts, that'll be available in January.
Okay, thank you.
So that's all I have. But incidentally, I would like
You would like what? Yep, hold on, you're mute. David, you're on mute. Unmute yourself.
I would like people to share their opinions as to whether having an advanced section makes any sense, how they feel about being on a bus, going to op sessions. If people don't want to do this, there's no reason we have to do it. It's just these are options as a way of getting around the traffic problem.
I think a lot of us would be in favor of it. I enjoyed it back in 2011 when you had the sessions in the Bay Area before Sacramento, so that was a plus. I think there's going to be a lot of people who probably won't operate much at all this year because of everything. So next year we may be trying to get as many op sessions as possible, 9, 10 in a week.
Yeah, this is Bill Raymond, comment on part of that is that, from a standpoint of publishing the information, Eric is right. You'd want it no later than the April issue, but depending on, what kind of programs you're going to use for registrants. When I did the Atlanta convention, I actually started taking registrations in January, and there were a number of people that were kind of upset that we started taking them that early. They wanted to wait until after the April issue came out because at that time the DO published articles on each of the railroads. Even though we had a website they could go to and find all that, there was some consternation. But
yeah, this past, I was going to say for St. Louis, we didn't publish anything because the timing just didn't work out.
Well, yeah, and of course, as it turns out, it didn't make any difference. But the point is that a lot of times in the past, and many past conventions, registration for op sessions didn't start until April or so. So, it really boils down to what works on your schedule for you, David. But I would agree with what Rob said and others, and that's, when there's, because we did something similar to that in Atlanta, not as extensive, but similar. We did a lot of en route op sessions, both to and from the convention, because of the traffic issues in Atlanta getting around. Not as serious as Santa Clara, but still, it was a consideration for people who attended op sessions. So I think anything you can do to make that less of a burden is a good thing.
May I make a comment on what we've done on most of the events out here is we take signups, but we don't actually make the assignments. The problem is when people cancel, say, well, I don't want to do this. I've got another competing thing, and it really louses things up if you've published the who's going to be where. So, but when we do the assignments, we record the original request date, and that is their priority on getting that point. So somebody signed up early, even though they won't know it for sure, maybe for just before the convention, they have a priority because of what we've done, and we don't have to hold anything back.
Right. So, David, is the operating session sign up done through the national registration, or is it like a whole separate process?
It's a separate process. We actually have, we're going to probably use the thing, we have a very nice scheduling system that allows signups from Bay Rail. We've made available to some other events that have wanted it. And we will probably use that, which will be independent of the NMRA's registration.
That's fine. I was going to throw operatingsessions.com as an option, but if you're using the Bay Rail software, that's doing similar things. So, okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments concerning the conventions? Okay, from a standpoint of the agenda that we published, or that Rob published, we've gone through all the items. Is there any issues or items that any of the general membership would like to bring up for the board's consideration?
Just a note, if you have a question, you can unmute yourself and ask at this point.
I would just like to say that having this on the video is really allows, I think it will allow a lot more people to present it. And I really like the opportunity to participate.
We're glad to give you the opportunity. And again, I'm appreciative of all the people who took the time to attend. You know, like I said at the start of this meeting, this is from the standpoint of all the annual membership meetings that I've attended, this is the highest attended one. I think at one point we got up to 71 people. So I think it's fantastic. My comment to the board is that I don't know if there's a way in the future that even when there is a physical meeting, that it can also be done with a Zoom type thing, so other people who aren't there could be.
Yeah, Bill, it just depends on the internet capacity of the place, and most of them don't work very well, and that's the biggest problem we have, is streaming anything live across the internet through a hotel wireless. It just doesn't work very well. We can try it next year, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's to me it's worth something. It's worth a try. So
I'd like just to say something if I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. You know, I haven't been a board member on LDSIG way back when. I appreciate the effort that you guys do. Bill, you, Eric, and Rob, and everybody else who volunteers their time. It is a volunteer organization, that things get done by volunteers. And I think a lot of people don't appreciate that. So for myself, just having recently got back into the SIG, I appreciate everything you guys are doing, and a big hands, big applause to you guys for everything you do. So.
Thanks, Ted. We appreciate those words. I guess my final comments are that when I was elected to the board 6 years ago, and then, like I said, elected president 3 years ago, I think we've come, and I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about the board, the members of the board and other volunteers that, have come along during that time. I think the whole organization is so much more improved, and a better tool and a better, and a better, so many more better ways to reach out and touch all of our people, our members and prospective members than it was. And a lot of that credit goes to Eric with, his redoing the web page and setting up the Facebook and the virtual meetings and other activities that we all have tried to move out of the, like I said before, the 90s into the, or maybe the early 2000s into the 2020s now. There's obviously been, technologically, there's been a lot of improvements made that allow these things to happen that, 10, 15 years ago just wasn't that easy to do. So I've enjoyed my time and I thank everybody for their support over that time. I hope you guys feel like, it's a organization that's been well run during that time. I feel like I say, we've done a good job, but I also look forward now to letting someone else take it over and hopefully, improve upon it further. Of course, I'll always be an OpSIG member, so I'll always be interested in what's going on, and I hope to see all you guys, or at least as many of you as I can, at future op sessions and or conventions, national conventions, whenever those are. So with those, that my parting comments, unless someone else has a final comment they'd like to make, then I will adjourn the meeting.
Great job. Good meeting.
Thank you. Okay, then I will officially adjourn this meeting of the general membership, or the annual general meeting of the OpSIG membership for 2020. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Bill.